chat, public chat. I don't know if anybody's there yet, so I'm just gonna play some little something to warm us up, a little amuse-bouche, an aperitif perhaps, and then we'll see where we get to. Hi, Nancy. So far, it's you and me. Hang in there. Hello, hello. Oh, there's people joining in. Lori, Keith, Nancy Atkinson, 210, 2010 charms. 2010 charms from down. Oh, and Ladysmith. Hello, hello. Welcome, you guys. I'm presuming that there's a few people out there, which is great. Thank you for joining me for Under the Hood episode 2. Last episode was a little maybe on the long side. And I am going to try and be a little less voluble. I'll try and confine my stories. In some ways, "The Longest Road" is probably the song that has the most tales attached to it because it's from my childhood. It's very much an autobiographical song. Some songs have more stories attached to them than others, and it's always interesting when you write a batch of new songs. You start thinking after a while, once you get them, kind of like as a group, and you're thinking about, oh, okay, well, these ones are going to end up in this record, and you start thinking, oh, what stories do I have around these songs? How do I introduce them? It's like the classic interview question that you get from interviewers when you put out a new record, and they say, what was the impetus for this album or this song? And you want to be honest and just say, look, I wrote these songs and I put this record out because I have a mortgage to pay, and this is what I do. And that's the truth. You write the songs because it's time to make a new record, and the whole thing is part of this cycle. But gradually the songs start to, it's like barnacles on a boat. They start to get stories attached to them, and you start to get a bit of distance from writing them, and you start to understand, that's why I wrote that song. So that's what this little series that I'm doing is about, is trying to sort of have a little bit more of an objective look and get under the hood of the song. So same format. I'll play the song, and I will go through the lyrics. If you want the lyric, I can see Jennifer's posted that. Thank you so much. You can get the lyrics for today's song at stephenfearing.com/carousel, which is the song that we're going to do today. This is a tune from the Every Soul's a Sailor. And there's a thing that happens when you write a bunch of new songs and you put out a record, and that is that at some point you step away from being the artist who writes the songs and you become the performer that has to put together a set list. And I'm at a point in my life slash career where I have way too many songs to to be able to play them all. And oh, the reverb's on. Hey, I'm not in the cave anymore. Even though that's not too it's not too bad. This is a little too much. Hey. But anyway, you get to a point where there's just too many songs. So some songs have to go, and then of course people come to see you because they like certain songs. So you can't just sort of wipe the deck and get rid of all the old material and just play new material. So what happens is you end up with songs from the new album that never get played. And Carousel got played a little bit, but not that much. And yet it's a song I really loved when I wrote it. And I'll explain and get into the sort of the etymology of the song. But this was a suggestion that I have a look at this song, and I thought, well, yeah, it'd be fun to jump from an old song like "The Longest Road" to a more recent song. I'm going to probably for this series, depending on how long it goes, I'll stay away from the brand new songs because I'll tend to be playing a lot of those live. Whereas a song like Carousel, I might only play it another 4 or 5 times, 6 times in my life, and then that's it, right? So, but it's still, it has a story to it, and it has a thing to it. And I don't know, maybe I'll start playing it more. Anyway, I'll play it for you now. Turn the reverb back on because it is so sweet. I love that sound. Some artists are scared of reverb or don't like it. I love it so much. All the stars are shining down upon this candle that you burn. The season follows season as the carousel turns. We were born to be creators. It's the birthright of our kind, and all our senses pour this world into and all our senses pour this. Let me start this tune again. See, I haven't sung it so long. I think I did this with the last one too. All our senses pour into the fountain of our mind. Okay, so let me just start again. All right, just pretend that didn't happen. All the stars are shining down upon this candle that you burn. As season follows season, as the carousel turns. We were born to be creators. It's the birthright of our kind, and all our senses pour this world into the fountain of our mind. So raise your cup or dip your bucket down into the well. Close your eyes, my brother, and drink deeply of that spell. Old friend, why do you deny yourself? Why do you pretend? Old friend, get back on that horse and ride again. Oh, I know it's hard to see. You keep walking in the walls, and Queensbury means nothing when you're in a barroom brawl. So get yourself out of the city to where the air is soft and clean, and lay your weary burden somewhere far from the machine. Build yourself a chapel or a place where you can kneel, 'cause we're all out in the wilderness, our shoulders to the wheel. Old friend, old friend, why do you deny yourself? Why do you pretend? Old friend, old friend, get back on that horse and ride. And everybody seems to know the secret of success. So what of it? What of it? Listen to your heart. It'll show you more or less that you discover it. For the love of it, old friend, old friend, why do you deny yourself? Why do you pretend? Old friend, old friend, get back on that horse and ride again. Get back on that horse and ride again. Whew. Normally, before we attempt these things, we do warm ourselves up a little more, and I might not actually get to a song like this, which is rather, it's got some big notes. Oh, friend, it's pretty, yeah, it goes up. It's got quite the dynamic range. I wouldn't start a set with a tune like this, so it's kind of interesting to jump right in. Anyway, I tell you what, I will start talking right away because, yeah, um, nature abhors a vacuum, and the deafening silence of not being able to hear you is a little overwhelming at times. But I am open to questions. So, oh, how's the weather in Victoria? It's still snowing in Alberta. Oh God, you don't want to know. I'd just be one of those really irritating West Coasters. Cherry blossoms, daffodils, the whole shebang, man. It's full on. I would say it's late spring here, and it is gorgeous. And okay, that's enough of that because I know I'm really depressing you. And the idea of this song was I wanted to pick something that was a little bit, I don't know, agony aunt is maybe a bit strong, but I did want to come up with something that was a little bit sort of uplifting because and I know that that's something you really associate with me. I may not be quite as bad as Laughing Len. Leonard Cohen's nickname by the British is Laughing Len. I remember when I was young, it was music to slit your wrists by. I know I do tend to write sometimes more melancholy tunes, but this was actually an attempt to write a kind of a "come on, man, get up off your arse" song. So I am open to questions. So if you want to ask me some questions, I will be looking. Hey, Southwest Norway, it's way past your bedtime. I don't even know how to pronounce your name, but bless you for joining us. Paul G, thanks for doing this. You're welcome. Thanks, Dee Dee. I appreciate it. Anyway, okay. So I'm going to draw a distinction here. For me, there is a distinction between the singer-songwriter and the songwriter, and I made it's definitely splitting hairs, but hey, I'm a singer-songwriter. I can do that. I made a decision a number of years ago that I wanted to think about what I do as a songwriter, not as a singer-songwriter, because a singer-songwriter, we're supposed to be looking at our lives, the confessional song. It's supposed to be all about me, 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 me. And I just got bored. I got so bored. with writing about me. And so I decided that, and the big epiphany, and this is a great joke, the big epiphany was realizing Johnny Cash, he did not shoot a man in Reno just to watch him die. He made that up. Who knew? So the idea that you can crawl into other people's shoes, get into other people's lives, look through the eyes of fictitious people or people that you know, but somehow write your way into their lives. That was far more interesting to me, and it gives you a lot of freedom. So this song, Carousel, is me writing a song for somebody else, somebody I was close to, a friend of mine, a fellow artist. But of course, as soon as you start doing this, it ends up being autobiographical in a way too. I think everything we write is autobiographical. The choice of metaphor, the choice of chords, the choice of imagery, all of that is mine. And so you'll notice if if you're crazy enough to listen to like all of my songs, there's certain images that show up a lot. I like them. Crows, moon, the ocean shows up a bunch. These, this is, I grew up by the ocean. I was born on the west coast of Canada. I grew up in Dublin. Like the ocean is always going to be there. So of course it becomes an image. Um, and so I turned the reverb down. Um, you will notice these things that kind of come through. So I do believe that in the end, it is very autobiographical. However, if I allow myself the freedom to look through other people's lives and don't necessarily always write about myself, it does widen the scope. So Carousel was an attempt to write a song for a friend, and a friend who is can I talk? I just saw a text. Can I talk about the editing of a song like this and how many times you rewrite, change words, etc.? Okay. Sure. I will get to that. I'm going to turn this down because it's distracting. Um, I was trying to write a song to a letter to a friend, if you will, and of course, it ends up being a letter to myself. The difficulties of being an artist. There's a book that if you are interested in creating of any kind, be a painter, whatever, it doesn't really matter what you do, that this song in particular drew very heavily from. And I have used this book as a sort of a distant um, coach, if you will, over my shoulder coach. It's a book written by a woman named Elizabeth Gilbert, and the book is called Big Magic. Elizabeth Gilbert wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love, which I never read, but she went from being an obscure novelist, an obscure writer, just one of the thousands, millions of people out there writing away and making, dedicating her life to writing. And suddenly, boom, she had this massive, massive international bestseller, Eat, Pray, Love. And Big Magic her his is sort of her letter to herself in a way to talk about creativity and why is she doing this, because there's a certain question that you have to ask yourself after a massive success is, why don't I get successful again, or why wasn't I successful before? And you start to realize, anybody who doesn't lose their mind and is still in this game, you realize you have no choice over this, or you have no say over this stuff. Success, it's not something that you as an artist have any say over, and in some ways that's probably a good thing. You do the work because you want to do the work. The work is the reason. The writing, all of that is the beginning and the end in itself. And so whether or not people like it, you got no control over that. And so you have to let go of that. And that's the kernel of this song for me. Um, all the stars are shining down upon this candle that you burn. The idea of, I really wanted to get the sense of my friend being alone and feeling alone. And sometimes I like to write at night. I love the feeling that the rest of the world has gone to sleep and I'm still up with my guitar or my lyrics or whatever, and that nobody can bother me and I don't have any distractions. And there's this whole other world that happens at night, different sounds, different things. Sound travels a long way because a lot of ambient noise disappears. So I wanted to get that sense of solitude and this one candle and this one person sitting alone with a candle. I wanted to get that image of solitude. And as season follows season, as the carousel turns, that's about, that's just about the sort of ongoing thing of your life. And the carousel is a nice image for the world spinning around and around and around. That's the carousel. Um, we were born to be creators. It's the birthright of our kind. That birthright idea is directly taken from Elizabeth Gilbert's book, the book Big Magic, which I'd show you a copy of it, but I actually just that over there is my stack of music books that I reference books, rhyming dictionaries, thesauruses, and anything that I find useful for writing. I tend to group them all together. And when I go away to write, I bring them all with me. And Big Magic comes with me. I have an electronic version of it on my Kobo, and up until recently, I had a physical version. It was, I think, the third physical version I've owned, but I keep sending them to friends that I think could use it. So I'll have to go buy another one. But if you get a chance, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and when you read through it, you'll see some of these themes. So the idea of the birthright, the fact that we're born with this desire to create, that is a very human thing. We are creators. All of us humans are creators, be it, something sort of abstract like playing the guitar or painting, or something much more simple, creating things to work with, creating food. You get the drift. So the idea that my advice to my friend, my advice to myself is, this is our birthright. So we're not doing anything strange or aberrant or weird, or sometimes as artists, you feel like, oh my God, I should just quit this and go back to, real, quote unquote, real jobs. If anybody says that to me now, I tend to get quite angry with them, because I tell you what, you've never worked harder in your life than doing this job. I honestly, it's a hard job. I'm not trying to make more of it, but anybody who thinks that being an artist is easy is a schmo. So yeah, we were born to be creators. It's the birthright of our kind, and all our senses pour this world into the fountain of our mind. Just the idea that if you want to do this, you want to write songs, you have to have the switch on all the time. You've got to be observing, listening, and you've got to cultivate that sensory thing so that stuff comes to you. Because again, Elizabeth Gilbert's idea, one that I really agree to, is the idea that ideas are floating around out there and they come to us. So if you've ever sat down and had an idea, if you don't pursue it, it will go away. Sometimes they'll stick around for a long time. They're very persistent. They really want you to write it. But oftentimes they'll kind of show up and go, "Eh, yep, you interested? Nope." And then they'll go somewhere else. And occasionally, and this happened to me years ago, there was a story in the Irish Times about the Magdalen laundries, which was this what do you call it, a nunnery, a convent, where they basically, the nuns, I think the Magdalene Sisters of Magdalene order, I'm not sure what the order was called, but they ran a laundry, and they basically took young girls who had been knocked up out of wedlock, often by somebody in the community, their fathers, their local parish priest, whoever, that they arrived pregnant, and the sisters basically treated them like servants, and they were sent to the laundries, and they were made to do physical labor, and they had their children there, and the children were often taken away and given up for adoption without the girl's permission. And a lot of the children died, the little babies died, and they ended up being buried without markers behind the convent. And this was discovered, and there was this outrage about it. And I remember reading the story and thinking, oh my God, that's a song. And I thought about it, and then it kind of went out of my head, and I didn't think about it again. And then Joni Mitchell, she obviously saw the same story, and she wrote the song. And that happens, you get an idea, man. Don't let it go, because somebody else will write that song or create that film or puppet show or whatever it is, if you don't jump on it, somebody else will. So that's the idea of having your senses on all the time means that you're open to these ideas and they come in and our senses pour this world into the fountain of our mind. And of course, I read this lyric out to you, this thing, and it's sometimes lyrics sound really great when you read them, and sometimes they sound a little trite because the rhyme scheme. I really believe in rhymes. I love it, rhyming lyrics, and I'm a bit of a stickler. So burn, turn, kind, mind. That's my rhyme scheme in there. It's not nothing complicated, but I do like rhyme. I like lyric poetry, which is where lyrics comes from. Henry Wordsworth, I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vale and hill. And all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. One of the first poems I learned when I was in school, and it was called lyric poetry. And poets at some point got tired of the strictures of rhyme and they went away from it. But songwriters stuck with it. And I personally love the idea. It's got a rhythm and a meter to it that is memorable. I actually think that rhyme helps people remember things. That's why I have such a strong rhyme scheme through my songs. Um, so that's the first verse. And then we get into a thing that is called a pre chorus. So the chorus of this song is the old friend, old friend. Why do you deny yourself? Why do you pretend? That's the chorus. But there's a section before it, which is not the verse, it's sort of the verse. It's a pre chorus. And it's not a great pre-chorus because it's not particularly memorable, and also it changes. Sometimes a pre-chorus is repetitive, like the chorus is always the same lyric. But mine has the same melody, but it's definitely heading into the chorus. So raise your cup or dip your bucket down and down into the well. Close your eyes, my brother, and drink deeply of that spell. So raise your cup or dip your bucket down into the well. Close your eyes, my brother, and drink deeply of that spell. The idea is, embrace it, drink it. Don't shy away from it. Don't question this impulse to do something creative. Just do it. And, you know, chug a lug, buttercup, take it on, do it. That's the idea behind that, those 4 lines going into the chorus. And then the chorus is just basically saying, why would you not embrace this idea that you are an artist? And I know the answer to that is because it's really hard, and because you literally bounce off the wall so many times that, and not only in, making money, but in writing the damn things. It can be intensely frustrating, and you can spend hours and hours and hours with nothing to show for it at the end. Which is where a book like Elizabeth Gilbert's is very handy, because that's the deal. That's the whole point. You go and you do it with no expectation necessarily, or no guarantee that you're going to come out with anything great. You might not come out with anything at all. And you might come out with something that nobody else but you likes, or you might come up with something that you don't even like yourself. So be it. Just keep doing it. Keep getting back on the horse, because that's the fun is the whole deal is doing it, not necessarily the result of what happens after you've done it. Okay, Stevie Connor, lovely to see you're here. Oh, Jeff, hey, yeah, you know what? I saw that movie about the Magdalene laundries. Um, you love the Tuesday shirt? Thanks. It's one of my many polka dots. By the way, here's a little crowdsourcing thing. These things are hard to find for guys. There's a lot of polka dots out there for women, but big dots, and these are sort of medium dots. I'm looking for like big ones. I'm trying to think, what's his name? blues artist who wears huge polka dot shirts. That's the kind I want, like Bob Dylan and Don't Look Back polka dots. I'm looking for those. If you see them, I'm a large, tall. Just pick it up, any colors, pretty much, and send them to me, and I will reimburse you. Okay. um, what else can I tell you? Any questions? I'm gonna just go. Seattle's checking in. Lovely. You mentioned going away to write. Where do you write? Okay, well, it's a good question. Um, it's changed over the years because my time availability has changed, and so this song and this whole the song, the album that this song comes from, and the last album, The Unconquerable Past, all of those songs, give or take, it's a good story when you're on stage, to say that they were all written in a very short period of time, but most of them were. It's pretty much true. I might show up for a week of writing with a couple of half finished songs, um, but what I'm finding is I go away because I want to be able to write day or night. I don't want to have to fit into the schedule of a house. And it's not fair. My wife, my daughter, if I'm home, I want to be home. I don't want to be like, oh, I'm in my room writing or playing. I want to be fully engaged in the house, making dinner, cleaning, all the stuff. And you can't really write when those things are hovering in the background. And also, since writing is hard, you will, as my old manager, Bernie Finkelstein, used to say, I'm not going to impersonate him, but he would basically say, I could lock you in an empty room, and you would have to refinish the goddamn floors before you wrote a song. And it's true. You will look for it. It's like, oh, I better change that light bulb. Oh, fill in the blank. I've got to do X, Y, Z before I can get down to it. So it's a bit like watching the dog, circling in the grass, and then finally, boom. So I need to go away, and I need to sort of fiddle and diddle around for 24 hours. I set up all my guitars, I plug in all my pedals, line up the cans of baked beans. and and then I finally start. And then at that point, you don't want to be distracted. You want to dive deep and really go into it. And what happens is the frustration shows up and the elation shows up and all of the different shins show up, and they come and go. And you get, after doing it enough times, and I have been doing it for a long time now, what I've come to is I got to go somewhere private. I got to know that nobody can hear me, or at least think that nobody can hear me. I don't want anybody hearing me when I'm going, "Oh, friend, friend, when I'm farting around with this stuff, I want to be free of the performing aspect of it, because that's not what it's about. It's not about, oh, I want to play this in a pretty way. It's about trying to find how these things fit together and experimenting and feeling safe to do that. So somewhere private, somewhere where you can go undisturbed for days and days and days. So I basically take off. Last couple albums have been written mostly, give or take, in a period of about a week, week and a half. If I'm lucky, I get a song or two a day, and I don't know. It just seems to work that way. It's not a. I would like to have the ability to write more, from certainly this period of time of self isolation would be a great time to write, except I'm in a house with two other beings, and I can't just sort of make noise at any time of the day or night. So I have to go away, and I often find that if you can go away to a place that you're unfamiliar with, that's even better. The less distractions, if you can go somewhere that has some interesting objects, hotel rooms, not so great, but you can do it at pretty much anywhere. As long as you got lots of paper, pencils, and a computer's helpful. But these books over here, the rhyming thesauruses, the rhyming dictionaries, the thesauruses. I've got books of slang. I've got, euphemisms, all sorts of stuff. Willie P. Bennett was the one who hit me to this, the reference books. So if you ever see a bookstore going out of business or a sales at, the big indigos, go in and go through the reference books because you'll often find some really interesting stuff. And wordplay, that's what this is. So if your job is to play with words, then as many toys that are at your disposal, the better. Okay, second verse. Oh, I know it's hard to see. You keep walking into walls, and Queensbury means nothing when you're in a barroom brawl. Queensbury, the Marquess, I think that's how you pronounce it, of Queensbury, are the rules of boxing. Apparently, some other Welsh dude, I think, came up with. So it was in the era of bare knuckle boxing, and they came up with rules. So they sort of took this common louts down by the docks beating the lard out of each other and turned it into a quote unquote sport by adding rules. And that's what the Marquess of Queensbury rules are. So the idea that is hard to see when you keep walking into walls, and Queensbury means nothing when you're in a barroom brawl. This is not, there's no fair in this business, in this game, in the creativity game. And again, you have no control over how people react to it. It You could work at it your whole life and get nothing out of it, and then some young punk arrives out of nowhere with some song about da 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 da, honey honey, and boom, they're off to the top of the charts. That's the way it goes. And so the idea that you can't play by any rules because there are no rules. That's what Queensbury means nothing when you're in a barroom brawl. And sometimes this business does feel a bit like a brawl because it can get pretty raw and dirty, and you have to have a pretty thick skin. So the songwriter, the empath, the sensitive singer songwriter, the Triple S Club, that person goes off to the cabin and does all this work and then hands off to Mr. Polka Dot Shirt, who is a little thicker skinned. And they crawl out on the road. They do the driving and the playing, and yeah, there's no fair. So get over that idea, but don't let that dissuade you from doing this. And that, again, that's what I'm trying to get across in this song is, so get yourself out of the city to where the air is soft and clean, and lay your weary burden somewhere far from the machine. Get out of the hurly-burly and the noise and the fight and the give yourself a break. Go find somewhere beautiful and calm if you can, if you have the luxury of that. And you can do this in the inner city. You can find somewhere quiet, somewhere away from your kids, somewhere away from your obligations, even if it's only for a few hours, and give yourself that. Uh, we all need that space. And what you have to do as an artist is you have to dignify the act of being an artist. And the way you do that is you make things like artist dates where you say, right, I'm going to go to this museum because I want to walk around and listen to people talking, and I want to pay attention to what they're saying. I want to go to the zoo. I want to go fill in the blank. I want to go to my local coffee shop for 3 hours with my notebook and just zone out. You give yourself permission to do that. That's a big part of it. Um, Lay your weary burden somewhere far from the machine. Build yourself a chapel or a place where you can kneel, because we're all out in the wilderness, our shoulders to the wheel. And actually, those last two lines, we're all out in the wilderness, our shoulders to the wheel. That's what made me pick this song. It was suggested to me by a friend, and I immediately thought about those lines because we are right now. I mean, if there was ever a time, holy smokes, the entire world, except for some of the people who are still going to church and going to the beach. Um, Most of us are hunkering down, and that's kind of what it's like being an artist. Is you isolate, you put yourself into this place of saying, right, well, this is all I'm going to do. And it's slow, steady work, just like we're all doing right now, to try and get ourselves through this time. it's that same kind of slow, steady patience. Don't lose your mind. You're up in a cabin for a week or 2 weeks trying to write an album. No pressure. Do not lose your mind. Enjoy. See if you can find the beauty in it and the enjoyment in it. Um, any more questions? I'm going to scroll down and see if there's any. Oh, let me just see if there's any questions here. I've turned my phone over, Jennifer. Is there something important that I need to know? Jennifer, Brian asks, about where you write. Okay, well, I got that. Okay. Bu- 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 bu. Easier writing with Colin or Tom? I've actually done very little writing with Colin or Tom, my bandmates in Blackie and the Rodeo Kings. Writing with Tom is really interesting because he's a kind of a cut to the chase guy. And so when I get a little too flowery or too many chord changes, I mean, there's a lot of chord changes in this, and I will get to the guitar part. Um, Tom will be like, no, 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 that's too busy, too complicated, too so we pull each other back and forth that way, and sometimes I create a bridge that he goes, I love that, I love that, and it's something that he wouldn't have thought of. So co-writing is great because you do get to sort of see the world through other people's eyes, your co-writer's eyes, through their images, through their chord changes. But also they often steer you away from, the usual paths that you take. And, they might lead you down, in Tom's case, some dark little alley where you can, where you can come up with something different. So yeah, writing with Tom is really great. It's also very funny. He's one of the funniest people I've ever met. Um, Winnipeg, Stephen, hello, big man. The many Steves gathering. Yes, there's a lot of Steves here. Allison Osborne, hello. Sylvia Brinkman. Are there any of your songs that you would not perform anymore? Yes, definitely. And those are some of this may be disappointing because I know people have asked for them in the request show. There was a lot of requests for some of the early stuff. Is just, how can I explain it? It's like trying to put on a pair of pants that you wore when you were 17. They just don't fit. um there was a song on the Kings and Kings record that Nick Lowe sang, and it was a song that I wrote with Andy White. And there was a lyric in the song, which was the song was called the secret of what is the secret? What is this? A secret of a long lasting love. And the lyric goes, I was born at the start of the summer of love. So we asked Nick Lowe if he would sing that song. And he came back and he said, do you mind if I change some of the lyrics? Because I just can't sing some of these. He goes, nobody that knows me is going to accept me singing, I was born at the start of the summer of love. So he changed the lyric to an eager young man in the summer of love. If you, I was born at the start of the summer of love, right? An eager young man in the summer of love. So it still scans. So he made a couple of changes like that. And I actually think he tightened the song up. I think it was kind of like watching a master mechanic go around and just go, oh, replace that part. That's not very good. New part. So he just replaced a few things and he tightened the song up and it was better after he was done. But I really, he articulated that idea that sometimes a song you just, either the song outgrows you or you outgrow it. So there's a couple of songs. Welfare Wednesday, I can't sing it anymore. The last time I played that was in Winnipeg. It was at Sled Dog Music. My friend John Sharple's great music store, one of the classic old school music stores with ukuleles and stuff hanging on the wall. And he also had a concert series there. And I think that was one of the first places that the Wailing Jennies ever performed, was at Sled Dog. But anyway, I was there doing some kind of a Q&A thing, and a guy said to me, would you play Welfare Wednesday? And I said, I don't think I remember the lyrics anymore. And he went, aha! He shoved this piece of paper in front of my face that had the lyrics printed out in extra big font. And I went, okay, all right. So I sang Welfare Wednesday, and after I finished it, I said, you know what? That's the last time I'm playing that song, because it's so dark. I can't go there anymore. And there are tunes like that where, for one reason or another, not necessarily because they're dark, just can't go there. And it's tough. Beguiling Eyes, if I said I'm never playing that one again, I would be a schmuck because so many people like that song. But I have to stop myself from, I have to sing that song from a bit of a distance because I wrote it when I was like, I don't know, 21, 22. I was madly in love and I was 22 and I was working up in the Rockies, and I just can't hardly relate to that guy anymore. I mean, you know, it's been a while since I was 21. And madly in love like that 21-year-old. So I have to sort of, I can't go there anymore. So I have to kind of sing it from a distance, like I'm observing that guy. And it's a different state of mind. Okay, get back to this. Oh, I don't know. Oh, God, Lord. 45 minutes. Oh, we started late. Um, the bridge. Now, the bridge, as I talked about in the last Under the Hood, the bridge is a musical chance to do something different. So we've had this melody. Da, 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 ba, dim, da, 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 da. Old friend. It's all around the same tonality, the same kind of center, which is a C. And so going into the bridge, why do you deny yourself? Why? And ride. And we go up to the bridge, which is in A minor. Everybody seems to hold the secret of success. So what of it? What of it? Listen to your heart, it'll show you more or less that you discover it for the love of it. Back to the chorus. So the bridge is a chance to go somewhere else, and I changed the pattern. And I want to talk about something, I mean, musically, lyrically rather, everybody seems to hold the secret of success. You know that feeling when it seems like everybody else has got the answers? And certainly as an artist, if you're in this business, this game for a long time, there's definitely periods where you feel so far out of touch. And as you get older, unless you have some kind of, renaissance like a Johnny Cash American records recording thing. Johnny Cash, there he is behind me. Unless you have some kind of renaissance or resurgence of your career, there's a feeling that you become less and less relevant to the mainstream, to the, what's current. Even if you weren't necessarily right in the center of it to begin with, there's a sense that, you at least were close. When I started, there was folk punk, and you could kind of be like, have spiky hair and wear leather pants and still be playing quote unquote folk music, but you were kind of connected to the Pogues, or at least in the same kind of ballpark as that. But what do I have in common with Drake or Kanye or not much? And so there's a feeling of being less and less relevant, and that's what I'm trying to get across to my quote unquote friend in this song. Everybody else seems to know how to do it, how to make it, and there's never any, if you get those conversations with people, why aren't you more famous? And you know, you could do this, and you should try that, and it goes on and on and on, and you just do what you feel, because that is the only guide that any of us have. And when it comes to writing songs or creating in general, that's the only thing that you can follow. Everything else is just, if you listen to everybody, you'll write some kind of weird sort of by committee song that won't mean anything to anybody. The only chance you ever have of connecting with anybody is if it connects with you. So you listen to your heart, yeah, there's craft involved, there's a shelf full of books. It's not like I'm sitting there, with a feather quill just writing my heart. I am actively involved in the craft of writing song. I really believe in that. But my guide is always, does it feel right to me? Does it sound authentic to me? Does this move me? Does it make me laugh? That's got to be the signpost for anybody. And then after that, we go back to the chorus. Why do you pretend? Why are you pretending? That line is just, why are you pretending to not be a creative? When you meet people and they're obviously a creative person, but they, for one reason or another, they're shutting it out. And it doesn't mean that you have to make your living from it. I'm not advocating that we all pack it in and go, become songwriters or painters or dancers or whatever. But if you have that urge, do it. What are you waiting for? And it's got nothing to do with whether people think it's good. And of course, that's the critic will come in and go, you're terrible. This is embarrassing. Everybody's done this before, blah, 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 blah. You don't pay attention to that. Again, Elizabeth Gilbert, big magic. She sits down to write a new book or to do some creative writing. She says it's like a road trip. And the critic is always going to come with you. The critic is always going to be there, right? So you say, okay, well, we're going on this road trip. You're welcome to come. You're going to come, of course, but you sit in the back and you can't touch the map and you cannot touch the radio. So you're in the back, but you're not driving this car and you're not in the passenger seat. You're in the back. And that's the way to do it, is to understand that critical voice that tells you suck. We all have it, is going to be there. And that's okay. Come on for the ride, but you don't get to drive the boat. Okay, that's the song. You can print it off and have a look at it yourself. It's in the key of C, but okay, I'm gonna have a quick look. Enjoying these songwriting ramblings. Good. Any questions? What are my favorite songs to cover? I wasn't born at the start of the Summer of Love either. I was born in '63, but the character in the song was. Favorite songs to cover. I don't know. Same thing as his favorite songs to write. The ones that move me, the ones that connect with me. It's fun to get to approach a cover as an exercise. A great cover song, which I've always wanted to play live, but I never quite was able to wrap my brain around. I did it once with Steve Dawson years ago. He had this series in Vancouver. I can't remember, it was the Copper Owl or some club that he had a residency at. He had a great band, and he'd invite a guest vocalist in, and the idea was covers. So I did "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road" on the ground. I mean, it's an amazing song. It's an amazing song. And I approached it because I love Elton John. And I love the whole, like everything about that song, the way it modulates, the craziness of it, the imagery of it. But even so, it was hard. It's hard to climb into the clothes. You got to be able to put the coat on. It's got to fit somehow. You got to be able to somehow make it fit, make it your own. That's a criteria for me. Elton John. This song very much influenced by Elton John, and I'll tell you why. The guitar part. So there's a guitar style that I have plumbed and I talked about in the last Under the Hood, which is John Martin. May You Never. That thing, that's John Martin. I got that from John Martin. I love that rhythmic percussive backbeat. But this song is, to me, it's like a piano song. Which is sort of like pop piano playing, like kind of simple. I always think of it as pianists who are writing pop songs where they don't actually have a great facility as a pianist. And I'm not saying that Elton John doesn't, because Elton John is amazing. He's one of the greatest of the greats for me. But that sort of that kind of style of I was trying to get that. All the stars are shining down upon this candle that you burn. The season follows season as a carousel turns. So that's what I was after, is that piano style, and especially in the bridge. The other thing worth noting is that, and I talked about this in the last Under the Hood, drop D. This is in drop D. The low E string has gone down to a D. So I have two Ds. So if you're playing in D, it's great because you get to play that low string. But this song is in C. And so what it gives me, there's an E minor shape because I'm in drop D. I have to cover the low E string because if I don't and play an E minor shape like most people do, it sounds like this. Not very nice. So I cover the E. And a G is normally this kind of a shape, but because I'm in drop D, I have to go up to here. So I've learned, because I love drop D so much, I've learned all these shapes that are kind of different. And I'm at a point now where even though if I'm playing a song like this and it's not in the key of D or in a D shape, I still prefer it because what it does is there's a point in the song in the pre-chorus where as season follows, we were born to be creators. It's the birthright of our kind, and all our senses pour this world into the fountain of our mind. So raise your cup, raise your cup. I get that lovely bottom end. Raise your cup or dip your bucket down into the well. Close your eyes, my brother, and drink deeply. So it's one thing. I get to drop down to that bottom. Whereas if I was in a standard tuning and I went to that note, I'll put it in the standard tuning. So raise your cup. I don't have that. Raise your cup. It's just a gravity. It's like a poo big chord. That's why I like drop D. And I will build a song around it so that when I go to the open string, I get that bottom. It's also a really handy thing to play in drop D when you're playing the bridge. This descending thing that happens. I'm very fond of this descending pattern. It shows up in a bunch of tunes. So the shape, if you are following, is it's pretty it's a nice thing. So for me, it's a drop D allows me to make a little bit more of an orchestra out of the guitar. And that's why even though I'm not in a D shape and I'm not in D, I'm in C, I'm still playing in a drop D tuning. In fact, these days I play pretty much everything in drop D tuning, and I've just started to get to loving it. The hardest thing for me in drop D was G is a if you're going to play and drop in D, D, E, F, G. It's a G is an important chord, and G sus. When you're in drop D, if you're going to play a sus chord like this, it's really big stretch. Like that's painful. And so I figured out how to play the sus chord in a different way. Just and so once I figured out how to play the sus chord in G for the G chord in a drop D, then it was like, well, that's it. There's no reason for me not to be in drop D, and it just means that I can play all the chords that I love and the variations on the chords, but I can be in this tuning. And if I want to sing in the key of E or F, which I'm fond of, I will capo. Right? I mean, if you see me play a concert, capo is pretty much on the guitar around here for the entire show because I like singing an E and F, and drop D is a tuning. Anyway, what else can I tell you? Oh, one more little story about this song, which there's a technique. I can't remember where I got it. I got it out of some book, which is if you're stuck and you're trying to come up with some kind of inspiration. Take a song that you love and just pull the lyrics away and write new lyrics to that melody. And then when you're done, just pull the melody away and write a new melody. And hey, presto, you got the new song. And so the idea that you could kind of disassemble, take songs apart like that is something that really fascinated me. And so in the early days, I remember taking a Bruce Cockburn song apart and writing, I can't remember which song I wrote, but I did indeed write my lyrics to Bruce's melody. And then I took Bruce's melody out and I wrote my own melody to my lyrics. And it was just a really nice way to kind of break up the log jam of that kind of, I don't know what to do, I'm stuck. But what I like to do these days is on The Unconquerable Past, there's a song called Stay With Me, which owes a huge debt of gratitude to Stand By Me, even though they sound totally different. Um, I was basically sitting there and looking, trying to peer under the hood of Stand By Me. Why do I love this song so much? What is it about this song that I love? And I end up writing Stay With Me. This song, Carousel, uh, I'm giving away a big secret here, but no, I can't forget this evening, nor your face as you were leaving. But I guess that's just the way the story goes. You always smile, but in your eyes, your sorrow shows. Yes, it shows. I can't live. One of the greatest songs ever. I love it. I mean, Harry Nilsson, that album, that song is just a monumental song. So, why not? So, what is it I love about it? Oh, it's what that C to the E minor is a lovely change. So, if I was a little less, all the stars are shining down upon. I can't do it, but clearly I leaned into that melody and I leaned into that chord progression, and then I started changing the melody. All the stars are shining down upon this candle that you burn, as season follows season, as the carousel turns. And then the form drifts away, and it doesn't, at that point, it loses its connection, and it's not really about that connection. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because it's all about finding inspiration and finding a way in and into the song. And so you can either look at it as saying, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write a song about, a difficulty that my friend, who's actually me, is going through with his creativity, and it's going to be a letter to a friend, all that stuff. Or you just sit down going, well, I can't forget this evening. What do I love? And you start dinking around with it. And that's a technical term. And it leads you somewhere else. So however you can find your way into this stuff is what I'm saying is it's all valid. It's all cool. Don't get my sweet lord and caught with plagiarism, because that's wrong, kids. But you definitely, this what, 12 notes on the piano, like it's very finite, and yet we each can come up with our own version, our own sort of inversion, if you will, of those 12 notes, and our own version of the chords. For me, playing in drop D puts it in my camp. It gives me these chords that are very much, I think of as chords that I love, that are connected to me musically. So I'm going to look one more time and see if anybody, it reminds me of Jim Cuddy song. Well, I'll bet you Cuddy loves that tune too. And there are forms of songs that if you start connecting the dots, so there's a song for another Under the Hood. I just thought of a song of mine, but I'm not going to give this story away on that one. Okay. Oh, now he's sharing big secrets. Good. I'm having trouble with the drop D stretch to a G chord. So yeah, there you go, Steve. Don't do this. It's just too big. Just find another way to. If you fart around with it and sort of let go of the things that and come up with um, different ways of doing it, you'll find that you can. What Coburn song did I mod? I can't remember. It was a long time ago. In my teens, I once wrote a song basically on that chord progression. Yeah, it's a that chord progression. If you start looking at it, you'll find that not even it's not original to that song either. Without you, there's like it's an old chord progression. It goes on and on and on. Anyway, I think you've been writing songs for many years. Do you ever accidentally repeat yourself or quote yourself? Yes, and yes, I do. Certainly, I use imagery again over and over and over. So, driving through the midnight between the rumble strips. Never let your promises get too far from your lips. Okay, that one, driving through the midnight between the rumble strips. Driving through the dead of night, 100 miles on one headlight. I like the image of driving at night and driving through the dead of night, driving through the midnight. I'm so self conscious of those being so similar that I make sure never to put those songs close together. But yeah, it's inevitable. I mean, you have your sort of palette of chords and images and melodic ideas, and they become your own. And I love the idea of trying to push the envelope all the time, but I'm also comfortable with the fact that things will show up. Sometimes you go, "Oh, wait a second, I can't. That's too much. That's too similar. I have to change that." As soon as the alarm goes off, and it's occasionally you think, "Have I done that before? Have I? Is that something I wrote before, or is that something somebody else wrote before?" Because it seems awfully familiar. So you do your due diligence and you look around because it's really easy for a song or a melodic idea or an image or something to appear in your head and think this is mine, and it's not. It's something that you heard. um the Stones, has anybody seen my baby? Mick Jagger was listening. His daughter, I think it was his daughter, had Katie Lang's constant craving, and it was he heard it in the house, and he wrote that song. Has anybody seen my baby? I can't remember, Steel Wheels or something. I don't know what album it's on, but he wrote that song and then immediately went, oh, oops. And he did the right thing, which is, they just they just cut Katie Lang. As far as I know, they cut her in as a co-writer on that song because that was her melodic thing, and he just took it without realizing. It happens all the time. I don't I'm less concerned about whether I'm plagiarizing somebody or they're plagiarizing me, because that's not what I'm interested in doing. I'm interested in creating something myself. So if I tend to repeat myself or something sounds a little bit like somebody else's, hopefully the alarm goes off for me, and I can change it. Anyway, any other questions? You got a crib from the best. Is there an artist I'd like to co-write with? Yeah, I can't think of who it is right now, but for sure. I mean, I had a great co-writing thing going with. I've written a batch of songs with Aaron Costello, and it was a magical thing. Sometimes these things come and go. Andy White and I have all had a really successful co-write experience. Unfortunately, Andy lives in Australia, so that kind of came to an organic end. But yeah, it's a funny thing. You can have this moment with somebody where you just sort of go to the same place, and it's a magical thing. It's I don't know. I don't know if there's somebody that I would think, oh, I could write with them. It would be great. Um, Guy Vanderhage is a novelist who I love his books, and he and I have said that we'll write together someday. I don't know if it'll ever happen. I would love it. But it would be a very different experience because he writes novels and I write songs. So we'd be coming at it from very different places. And if we were going to write songs, then I would definitely be the one saying, okay, this is how we're going to do it. When you write with another songwriter, it's two people who are coming as equals. And sometimes the best thing you can do is just shut up and get out of the way because sometimes the song is coming and it's coming down their track, not yours. Okay, I think we're done, folks. Thank you. Yeah, Nielsen. I know. Harry Nielsen. Oh my God, one of the great voices. Nielsen Schmielsen, and a little touch of Schmielsen in the night. Having tried, okay, think we got it there. Any other questions that I missed? I'm looking through the thing. Your cover of Early Morning Rain. Thank you. I appreciate that you like that. I mean, I love that song. So yeah, that's a cover where I could really climb into those clothes. I think we're done, folks. I'm definitely going to be doing this next Tuesday. I am working on another live stream that is not this, where I actually play music for an hour and don't talk. But I will be doing this again. I'll pick another song. I'm open to suggestions. I may pick it, I may not, but feel free. And thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Take care of yourselves. It's starting to get a little bit strange now. I think for everybody. I know I'm feeling a little weird, but I tell you what, doing this, whoo, it helps. It helps so much. Take care, you guys. Thanks a lot. And goodbye.